Friends, this is the first time that I've reported to you since I took over from Ingrid Greenhow as Clerk to Britain Yearly Meeting Trustees in January. Ingrid's a hard act to follow, but it's been fun so far. I'm grateful to have been given the chance to serve in this role, and there are many privileges that have put me in a position to take it on. Being born into a white middle-class family where there were a lot more than 50 books, and where girls' education was valued, and at a time when the state paid for me to study to degree level. Being employed in jobs in the charity sector that allowed me to learn, and in roles that have been fulfilling, while also paying me a decent salary. When I came to Quakers as a young adult, being trusted by older friends to take on responsibilities within my local meeting and area meeting that stretched me, and as soon as I filled in a yellow form in my mid-30s, in centrally managed work. And I'm fortunate to have been born with the innate capacity to do this sort of thing. My brother has learning difficulties and will never be able to live independently. So I've always known that I have a responsibility to use the talents that I have. And there are some very specific privileges that make it possible for me to serve as Clerk to Trustees now. I live and work within cycling distance of Friend's house, and it would be much more difficult to balance this service alongside a busy job if I couldn't get here so quickly. And of course that's only possible because I was able to get onto the property ladder before housing became so crazily expensive. And I'm sufficiently senior that I can largely arrange my work diary and book leave when clerking responsibilities require it. I don't have children, and though that's not by choice and not exactly a privilege, it does mean that I'm not pulled in as many directions as a parent would be. And my husband Jonathan became a Quaker a few years ago, so he doesn't complain when I disappear to trustee meetings, or not often anyway. Current trustees are very keen to make trusteeship possible for a diverse range of friends. We're really grateful to Central Nominations for taking up the challenge from Warwick Yearly Meeting and giving us 2 trustees who are under 30. More than half of us are in paid employment, and I'm grateful to those who aren't, and particularly David Olver, our assistant clerk, who take on some of the tasks that require engagement during the working day. We're holding some subgroup and committee meetings by Skype to reduce travel, though there's still a significant time commitment in coming to 1 weekend outside London and 4 day-long trustee meetings every year, as well as attending meeting for sufferings and serving on subcommittees and groups. It's not something that everyone is in a position to do, and not all would want to. Britain Yearly Meeting trustees are responsible for the work of the charity that delivers the centrally funded work of Quakers, and which sustains the national church that includes us all as Quakers in Britain. We as trustees are not responsible for the activities of area meetings and local meetings, though of course much of the charity's work is to support the wider Friends faith community. We work closely with Meeting for Sufferings, which acts between yearly meetings as the body which represents the church as a whole. We resource and are responsible for all the centrally managed work. The centrally managed work is described in the annual report, which I'm holding up, and you can find it outside in the bookshop. And I do urge you to read it if you have time. Or the annual review, the brown one, which is a more readable version. The range, both of them give you a picture of the work that is being done. The range is tremendous, from delivering the Children and Young People's programme that's going on in parallel to what we're doing here, to the Sanctuary Everywhere programme, where the centrally managed work not only provides advice to friends locally, but also amplifies your work through national campaigning and advocacy. I'm very grateful to all our staff who deliver this work in our name. A lot of what we do as trustees is important, but not actually very exciting. As required by the Charity Commission, we look at the risks that face the charity and how they can be mitigated. We agree a budget and the accounts that our Treasurer Linda Batten will tell you about in a minute. And we minute a lot of decisions that keep the wheels of the charity turning. And as clerk to trustees, I line manage Paul Parker, the recording clerk, who in turn leads and manages all the staff working for Britain Yearly Meeting. Today I want to talk about just 3 matters on which trustees have spent quite a bit of time this last year. The first of these is setting strategic priorities for the charity, which is, of course, one of the tasks explicitly required of trustees by the Charity Commission. But doing it isn't altogether straightforward in our context. As Quakers in Britain, we already have our faith in the future. I'm holding up the English and the Welsh version to remind you what they look like. And it sets out our collective vision for the coming years that we work towards as individuals, as meetings, and through the centrally managed work. The 6 elements set out in the book, in the leaflet, are: meeting for worship is the bedrock of living as a Quaker. Quaker communities are loving, inclusive, and all age. All friends understand and live by Quaker discipline. Quaker values are active in the world. Quakers work collaboratively. And Quakers are well known and understood. So we've got that, and we've also got an annual process whereby trustees agree an operational plan and a budget for the centrally managed work. But the middle level seemed to be missing, being clear about the strategic priorities for the charity over several years. So that's been an important piece of the work for us during 2018, through an iterative process where we garnered views and feedback from Meeting for Sufferings and from central committees, and we worked closely with senior staff. The shape emerged during our weekend at Swarthmore Hall last summer, and we are now clear that what we need is a simple church supported by a simple charity to reinvigorate Quakerism. To do this, the centrally managed work, the work of the charity, will have 3 strands: supporting Quaker meetings and other groups to be diverse, to thrive and to grow, working with and on behalf of Quakers towards a sustainable and peaceful world, simplifying structures and practices in our local and national organisation. And any work that we continue or develop must be distinctively Quaker, integrated between Quakers locally, nationally and internationally, and within Britain Yearly Meeting. Well governed, and that means resourced, impactful and communicated effectively. We will have to make choices and resist the temptation to interpret the priorities to keep doing everything that we're currently doing and to go on adding more. Pieces of work may have to be laid down that are close to some of our hearts. But we hope that the greater clarity will make it easier to make those difficult decisions, and also to explain to you and all friends back in our meetings what is being done in your name. And we hope that, in turn, friends will recognise that each of us has a responsibility to help fund that work at whatever level we can afford. Sustainability, of course, features strongly in those priorities, and it's the second matter that I want to talk about today. The hospitality company is a really impressive exemplar. It runs this building, generating income from hirings and the cafe that funds a large part of the charity's work. And it does that while demonstrating our Quaker values, from paying a living wage to all our staff, to considering sustainability in every decision made. In 2018, our carbon footprint reduced by 24% across Friends House and Swarthmore Hall. You can see the details of that in the annual review. And you can see around you how single-use plastic is being discouraged. And our witness work on sustainability has included engaging with other faiths and with the government on policy issues, as well as providing support to friends who are carrying forward this work in their local meetings. The third area that I want to highlight is the Vibrancy pilot project that is now in its third and final year. The project, a collaboration between Britain Yearly Meeting and Woodbrook, has provided a part-time worker in 4 regions of the country, led by a national coordinator, and has provided support to local meetings in the ways that they want it. We commissioned an evaluation from the National Council for Voluntary Organisations so that we could learn what has and hasn't worked. And it is clear that the provision of flexible and local support, or perhaps I should say fairly local support, as each worker covers a large region, and that this has really made a difference. You can find the full version of the evaluation on the Woodbrook website if you'd like to know more. Trustees heard from the Vibrancy Steering Group several times in 2018 and at our February meeting this year. And we minuted that we must find a way to take forward the benefits of the project. This sentiment was reinforced when we heard from representatives at Meeting for Sufferings last month that those from area meetings included in the regions where a vibrancy worker has been engaged have seen tangible change. And from areas where there is not such a worker, that the benefits are spilling over to those areas too. In 2 weeks' time, we will consider, with Woodbrook trustees as well as separately, what to do when the pilot project finishes. Alongside the learning from the Simpler Meetings project, this is going to shape what we do through centrally managed work in the first and third of the 3 priorities that I outlined just now. There's likely to be an evolution towards a very different way of delivering much of our support to meetings, with less done from Friends House and more provided nearer to friends in their meetings. This thinking needs to dovetail with that from the Simpler Meetings project. Centrally, we're challenging ourselves as to whether so many committees are needed, and wondering if many could be smaller and meet less often. As trustees, we may well suggest to you that our number could be reduced too. Such simplification would save money and reduce our carbon footprint. But even more importantly, it would make more staff time available to do rather than report, and reduce the number of friends whose energy is consumed in committee service rather than the life of their local meetings and witness to the world. We think that this will play a part in reinvigorating Quakerism. As you can see, we feel as trustees that Britain Yearly Meeting, the charity, the centrally managed work, is going to change over the next few years to play its part in reinvigorating Quakerism. Are you and your area meeting ready to play your part in reinvigorating Quakerism too? And do you feel that the plans for centrally managed work will help you to do that?
Hello, friends. I'm Linda Batten, part of Sheffield Central Local Meeting, Sheffield and Bolby Area Meeting. I'm the first female treasurer for the yearly meeting. Thank you to David Oliver, behind me, for confirming this. To my surprise, there haven't been very many yearly meeting treasurers. I had assumed there were treasurers that have gone back for years and years, dating back to the early days of the Religious Society of Friends. But do you know when the first yearly meeting treasurer was first mentioned in Quaker Faith and Practice? Not until 2008. Those of you with long memories and involvement with Friends may know it's only since the late 1980s that there has been a treasurer for the whole yearly meeting. Prior to that, the different departments at Friends House were funded separately, and each had their own treasurer. I'm not sure whether any of those were female, but it means I am only yearly meeting treasurer number 6. I am what I look and sound like, an educated, middle-class, white, cis woman. And the privilege of having a comfortable start in life is the encouragement to question what's around me. Partly this comes from having a Quaker background. Not we believe, but what do you think, feel, believe? A spiritual tradition which supports the questioning of God leads to the possibility of questioning other societal norms, sexuality, getting a job primarily for money, marriage, house ownership, childbearing, and more. And the encouragement to question is a privilege. It's given me many choices, and these lead to many different actions. My partners have been both male and female. I live in a housing cooperative, sharing resources with unrelated adults, which means I don't need a large income. I haven't felt the expectation to get married, and I've actively chosen not to have children. Many people don't have these choices. To move on to the accounts, friends, you may have in front of you, in paper or electronic form, both the annual report and financial statements, agreed by trustees, and the annual review, Our Faith, Our Work, which has been sent to every local meeting. The annual review is exclusively about our charity, Britain Yearly Meeting, and the centrally managed work, and it's a brilliant read. The longer document, which contains rather more words, as well as plenty of numbers, is the annual report and financial statements. A huge thanks are due to Lisa Q, Head of Finance here at Friends House, and her team for getting the annual accounts turned around in under 3 months. It's a big undertaking. Any of you who are treasurers for your own meetings will know that that's quite a difficult task. I also want to mark the work of Peter Ullathorne, who's been standing here for the last 6 years. These accounts are from the time when he was yearly meeting treasurer, and I'd like to thank him for the joy and enthusiasm with which he took on this role. The figures I'm going to give you now are the combined income and expenditure figures for Britain Yearly Meeting, the charity, and the hospitality company. The headlines for last year, 2018, are these. Our income was 12 million, a little less than the previous year. Our outgoings were 12.75 million, also a little less than the previous year when we held a yearly meeting gathering. This means we spent around £750,000 more than came in. In addition, our investments fell in value by about 2.3 million in December 2018, so our combined loss was around £3 million. We carried forward £77 million into 2019. Looking more at the income for 2018, nearly £5 million of that £12 million was gifted to us by Quakers, a heartening show of support for Britain Yearly Meeting's work, through both contributions and legacies. It was a lean year for legacies, which are always hard to predict, and contributions from friends and meetings fell slightly. So in fact, your support was down almost £750,000 on the previous year. Fortunately, the hospitality company once again delivered a record-breaking gift towards Quaker work, raising its contribution by almost a third to £1.3 million, as well as covering most of the running costs here at Friends House. But this level of growth is not sustainable. We only have so much space, and lettings will reach capacity in the next few years. As I said, 2.3 million of the 3 million loss was accounted for by a decrease in the value of our investments. In 2018, there was much uncertainty in the wider economy, and December saw a substantial fall in the stock market. However, we all know the stock market is volatile, and particularly so in these uncertain times. A recent valuation shows the investment portfolio has fully recovered the loss from that December volatility. £77 million sounds like quite a lot of money, but most of it isn't available to us in cash for spending. Of this £77 million, around 2/3 of it, or around £50 million, is actually tied up in property. Here, Friends House, Swarthmore Hall, Quaker House in Brussels, Drayton House that we've been using this weekend, Courthold House, Jordan's, and some other smaller properties around the country. The remaining third of that £77 million is in investments. In the last year, the investment policy has been revised by trustees, and we've agreed to spread our investments more globally, which puts us in a better position going forward. We've worded it more clearly for our investment managers to ensure that our ethical stance is taken into account in all our investments. We know that Friends have been looking at the revised investment policy, and we hope you're finding it useful in reviewing your own area meeting investment policies. You can read it on the Yearly Meeting website. The contributions that you and those in your meetings make to Britain Yearly Meeting absolutely make a difference. I'm sure in some way your meeting experiences this firsthand by benefiting from the support that the Yearly Meeting provides in so many ways to all of us. But of course, the Yearly Meeting's work is not just about supporting Quakers in Britain. We work on social and economic justice, we're doing more work on sustainability, and we work overseas, particularly in East Africa, and on the Ecumenical Accompaniment Programme. Trustees are not complacent about the future, but Britain Yearly Meeting has some firmer income streams. The income from the hospitality company, the rent from Drayton House next door. However, we have been reminded we cannot rely on legacy income, which fell last year, and so far we've received less this year than in previous years. In real terms, the value of contribution from Friends is falling as numbers of Friends fall, although the amount given by individual Friends is rising. Britain Yearly Meeting remains well-resourced and financially sustainable. Over the next 5 years, trustees will continue to invest in the future of the society by developing resources and services to support Quaker meetings to be diverse, to thrive, and to grow. We will also start talking to area meetings about the work managed from Friends House, about how the work managed from Friends House can support the work you're doing locally, and how area meetings can enable this by providing support and money. We're well aware we can't put the world to rights by ourselves. A new fundraising strategy has been agreed by trustees, and during this year we will see the appointment of dedicated fundraising staff in Friends House, and they will start the work needed to raise more money for the work done in our name. But this will take time, so don't expect to see additional income arriving in 2019 from this. Meeting for Sufferings has previously agreed that the yearly meeting will not contact individual friends about their financial giving, which is why everyone should receive a leaflet from their treasurer or schedules collector, encouraging them to give to the centrally managed work. If we have more money coming in from friends, or in the future from our increased capacity for fundraising from people in organisations that share our values, we would be able to do more work to build a future where thriving, diverse Quaker communities find strength in worship and fellowship. And Quakers are well known and widely understood, able to offer patterns and examples in turbulent times. We encourage you, friends, to check your own giving to Quakers locally and nationally. Have you checked your standing order recently and considered changing it? Do you write out a cheque for the same amount each year, or does it change according to your circumstances? We don't ask that all friends and attenders give the same amount. We do not all have equal privilege. But we do ask that we all give with equal generosity. I hope you'll read Our Faith, Our Work, and encourage friends who aren't at yearly meeting to read it, as well as talking to them about our centrally managed work, so that we all feel more connected to the work being done in our name and more part of it. Thank you.